do have Dwight Wells with us tonight, and Dwight's been working with feral bees and queen rearing and all kinds of stuff for many, many, many years. And I'm just going to let you go ahead and get started, Dwight. Dwight has shared his screen, so
there you go.
Okay.
Okay. What we're going to talk about tonight is feral stock. There's been a group of us have been swarm trapping for several years now, and we have it down to a science. Last year, we caught 200 feral swarms in isolated areas in different parts of Ohio. And because of what we're starting to see with the feral bees, Zell Maxwell and I, long story short, partnered up last year, and Zell's an old geezer like I am. Of course, I'm older than he is. He's been in beekeeping since 64, and I've been beekeeping since 54. The point I'm making is Zell and I remember the good old days when, before Varroa came into Ohio. And there's been a noticeable change on the bees. Because back then, we basically were working with feral bees for the most part. Ohio, the state of Ohio, before Varroa, had around 40,000 colonies of bees and bee trees. It's been estimated by Ohio Department of Agriculture. So with that said, I'll show you a slide of some of the things I'm working on right now. But I want to show you, especially you new guys, in the world of queen rearing, you can see those little cell cups up there to the upper left. And those are what we call 48-hour queen cells. From the time we grafted the larvae, transferring the larvae from a worker cell into a queen cell cup, and they were put into a queenless colony, the bees have drawn out that wax over the period of 48 hours, and above that queen cell, or in the queen cell cup, it is full of royal jelly. And that's what we need to have our larvae that's going to be our queens. They got to be fed like that. So I'm just giving you a little bit of a hint what we're focused on. And then you can see there's some of Dr. Joe Lackshaw's queen cells down there. And on the right and the left is a queen cell that produced a nice looking queen beside it. Her name was Hope. I produced her in 2013. So we're going to focus on queens tonight. That's the idea. Why do we care about new genetics in our different locations? Well, we got to fight. We're in a war against Varroa. Have been since '87, and in a lot of areas in the United States, Varroa is winning the war. The commercial beekeepers are having an extremely difficult time controlling Varroa, so they can. They're at almonds right now. You new beekeepers. From Valentine's Day until March 15th, the almonds are in bloom. And right now there's probably about let me see, am I right here? About 2.5 million colonies of bees in the almonds, pollinating the almonds, if it's warm enough and it's not raining. And they're having a problem with Varroa, the commercial guys do. So that's why we are working with feral stock here in Ohio, because they are winning the war against Varroa. And then we also need to increase the diversity of our honeybee stock. Beekeeping is no different than animal husbandry, that the
You're mute.
Yeah, hang on, Dwight. Shoot. Hang on. Okay, Dwight, unmute yourself. Dwight, can you unmute yourself?
There.
Okay.
I had to find
Try
myself. So
well, when I mute, I kept hearing background, so I muted everybody.
Yep.
And then I muted you.
Yep, I hear you.
Okay, good.
So like I was saying, beekeeping is no different than raising livestock or working with livestock. So you have to have diversity in your gene pool. And we need to have local adapted genetics for your areas because they're adapted to the environment in Ohio. And we need that so that the bees are used to the flowers and the temperatures all 4 seasons. And then we're desperately needing to increase the drone populations in our queen mating areas. It's becoming critical in that. Now, a little bit about, okay, I thought I had, okay. Okay, I'm going to explain some biology here for you, especially you new guys. You have a queen. She's mated. She's laying eggs. She's on a comb. And you have drone comb, which is larger. The cells are larger for the drones than it is for the workers. So when a queen walks up to a cell, she uses her 2 front legs as a caliper to measure the width of the cell to determine whether she's going to lay a fertilized egg for a worker or not fertilize an egg for a drone, because drones are not come from unfertilized eggs. So you have a queen that's laying either unfertilized eggs or fertilized eggs. You see it at the top of the slide. Now the unfertilized eggs do not have a father. They have a mother and a grandfather and a grandmother on their mother's side because they come from an unfertilized egg. That's extremely important to remember that. On the fertilized egg side, the queen has approximately, when she goes out and mates with around 15 to 30 different drones, she's carrying sperm from all those drones in her spermatheca. And on a new queen that's just mated, she can have as high as 5 million sperm in her spermatheca. She only goes out to mate 1 time. So for the life of that queen, she has all those sperm to use. Typically, she uses 2 or 3, 4, 5 sperm per egg. So it's extremely important to understand that a queen has to be mated well with good drones, with good genetics backgrounds. And on the other hand, the queen's background has got to be good with good genetics so that the drones that are the unfertilized eggs that she lays have excellent genetics. So it's 2 sides of the queen. We have a lot of dynamics here as far as the queens are concerned. Okay, about Dwight Wells. I'm president of West Central Ohio Beekeepers Association. I'm a director for top of the Ohio region. I have 10 counties up north. And I helped found the Heartland Honeybee Breeders Cooperative out of Purdue University. And Zell and I started the Ohio Queen Bee Improvement Enterprise with what we're doing. We started last year, and Zell's going to ramp that up a lot this year. I'm on the OSBA Education Committee, and also I got roped into doing the USDA Ohio Monthly Honey Report. And I have bees at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base here in the Dayton area, and I'm working with Honda of America up on Marysville, Raymond, Ohio, and also East Liberty. And then I got a lot of Purdue projects working with Dr. Brock Harper. Why I mention all that is because Honda is going to, once we get everything ramped up there, working with Purdue, in the future, we are going to supply nukes for the FFA and 4-H scholarships that OSBA gives out every year. And also they told me the other day they're going to start working with a veteran project too. And I have about 100 colonies of bees all together in all of this. And I'm also a member of the Ohio Pollinator Habitat Initiative, OPI, that was started about in 2014 for the monarch butterfly, and it has now extended to the bumblebees and honeybees, all the native bees also. And that's made up of ODNR and ODOT and Fish and Water and Quail Forever, Pheasants Forever, and ODA, Soil and Water. So I'm kind of busy, but I enjoy life. We'll put it that way. So that's a little bit of my background. And I started in 1954. So yes, I am 80 years old this year, last year. Okay, now one of the things you need to understand, Dr. Friedrich Reuter in 1976 discovered Varroa in Germany and Austria. And he and his brother, the Ruttner brothers, did a lot of work with Varroa and also on the genetics and also how to move genes from point A to point B. Now, it took 11 years for the feral bees over in Europe to start to chew the mites, to kill the mites. That's 11 years. Now, at the same time in 87 is when Varroa invaded North America. Thank goodness, 1992, Reuter published a paper on chewed mites, and thank goodness he published some images of those mites. Dr. Greg Hunt from Purdue at the time, he's a geneticist, he's now retired. Greg discovered chewed mites in 1999. So it took around 12 years in Ohio, because that colony that he found them in was just south of Cleveland, at his mother's backyard. They were survivor, and they just lived and lived, and he went up and got them, took them over to Purdue, and lo and behold, they were chewing. So there's, you have 11-year period over in Europe, and about 11 or 12-year period in Ohio here that the ferals start to chew through natural selection. And then my buddy, Dr. Price Smith, made videos of chewing behavior in 2011. And I crossed paths with Dr. Tom Seeley in the late winter in 2012 down in West Virginia. And he said, "Hey, Dwight, you ought to start swarm trapping." Not knowing what I was doing, I started swarm trapping. I was spastic, and I got my first swarm in 2012. 2015, on a SARE grant with Penn State, I discovered that the feral survivor stock that I had were chewing at 30% in Miami County here that I live in. Now they're up in 2019, they're up at about 90% biting. Now, you new people, I don't know whether I have a slide of them. I think I do. What I might, it's been chewed. Just hold on there for a few minutes, you'll see it. Then in 2020, last year, it had been increased up to 95%. Now, through all this, what they're doing, they're controlling the mites. We will always have mice, but the mice, for the most part, are under control because of cats, dogs, snakes, mouse traps, etc. Up until the last few years, mites did not have any natural enemies. We were using all sorts of chemicals and illegal, legal, whatever, to kill the mites. We were killing a bug on a bug, which isn't good. So now we have feral stock that are chewing at about 95%, which is great. And then last year, our Ohio trapping network, we caught around 200 swarms, because the feral bees are getting very healthy. And we're noticing there's more feral swarms in isolated area, not near any package bees or commercial beekeepers. And mite binding is only one of the phenotypes or behaviors that bees have. There's a lot more. You'll see that in a few minutes. So anyway, that's a mission statement that Zell and I come up with. And basically, it's a network cooperating between the feral swarm trappers, the queen producers, and beekeepers within Ohio that want to get to work with us to get these bees out here in the around Ohio. And we have several clubs that are starting to work with us. Dr. Megan Milbreth, who I worked with out of Purdue, she's Michigan State University Extension. She's a good writer. She wrote 2 articles, one in August 2020 and ABJ in September. Those are excellent articles. And if you guys are not getting American Bee Journal or Bee Culture Magazine, you need to do that, because things are changing so rapidly. In order to keep up with the technology of beekeeping, it's the only way you can do it. Now, one of the things that Tom Seeley has mentioned time over time, through natural selection in an isolated area. In his case, it was up at the Arnott Forest at Cornell University in New York, the state of New York. In order to develop the resistance, both in Europe and USA, you've got to have a lot of phenotype behaviors. It takes about 10 years. And the same thing with plants. Anything that goes feral or wild, they're always evolving naturally. In Puerto Rico, they were overwhelmed with Africanized bees. And the bees that escaped and became feral, 10 years later, they were not aggressive. They have their Africanized bees down there are gentle. So natural selection is a big part of what we're working with for the varroa. And Dr. Robert Page has come out with a new book, The Art of the Bee and the Spirit of the Hive, in 2013. If you read those 2 books, he's a great researcher. He did a lot of work with DNA out with Craig Hunt in California in 1995. They did the first markers of bees out there. That was a turning point in being able to check DNA of honeybees. And genetic variation, he says, is the grist of the mill of natural selection. You got to have genetic variation, and you will have with feral stock. We see that all the time on our swarms we catch. Here is a paper that was published in June of last year. All the different traits, all the different phenotypes that the bees have. Now, VSH is Varroa sensitive hygienic, and I don't have time to talk about it tonight, but all these behaviors, the hygiene, being very clean, and the VSH is meaning that they're going in and killing the mites on the pupa during the reproduction stage of the mite in with the pupa that's growing underneath the cell brood. The grooming behavior, they have a lot of virus resistance. The cell size, they're finding out standard cell size is a little bit smaller than what they have, but it's just about the same size. I don't see much difference. But you see all the different things that they've been working with. And he went through 201 footnote of scientific papers. Most of them are over in Europe. And people are understanding that natural selection and selective breeding, that's the way you get their resistance and tolerance to honeybees. And my buddy Dr. Brock Harper in Purdue just came out with a paper in 2019 about the genetics and evolution on the honeybee's social immune system. Immunity is a great thing, because the USDA checked a lot of our feral swarms in 2017, and they did not have viruses. That's a big deal. And we're going to be working more on that this year with Purdue. Now, here's a yard up in Union County. They're all feral stock. And there's a research partnership that's going to start this year up in Union and Logan County, in that area up there. Those are all feral bees that we caught. We set out 10 swarm traps, and we got 8 swarms. That's one of my yards at Wright Pat in 2015 when we started what we're doing at Wright Patterson, where the Wright brothers did their experiments back in the early 1900s. I've got 11 colonies of bees. They're all feral bees. That was the beginning of it. and I was feeding them water. That's not sugar syrup. That was water at the time. And because of the work we're doing at Wright-Patterson, we're a bee city, USA. So what we're doing is we're going from the left picture. You see all those mites on that drone brood. To on the left, right side, Zell and I did a alcohol wash on 300 bees at his place from an overwintered colony. And at the time it was around two or three deep supersonic, a lot of bees. The one colony only had one mite. Think about that, one mite. Now they have high chewing behavior, but I was talking to Brock the other day and he said, you know, the easiest thing we can do, just do alcohol washes. A lot of people have a difficult time determining whether the mites are chewing or not. So he said, right now to make things easy, we're going to be doing nothing but mite washes. And if we get something like 1 mite per 100 or below, that's good breeding stock, as long as they're gentle and they're high producers, you know, all the other things we like to see in bees. Okay, there's a mite upside down for you guys. That's a mite. It's upside down, and you can see up here. You can see my cursor. That red arrow there. That leg, the tip of that leg has been chewed off, and when they have something chewed on their body, they bleed to death. But here's the leg. Here it's been chewed about 50%. But here's an interesting thing that I discovered about a year ago at this time. The bees are getting very creative, and now they're ripping out the intestines and eating the intestines for the protein. And also they're chewing the tissue around the base of the legs. So they're really getting ruthless on the mites, and that's great. We need to have that. If we have all of our colonies in Ohio that was like this colony I have in my backyard, life would be a lot better for us today. A little bit of history about the 48-hour queen cells. It was started over in Germany. Larry Connor's buddy, John Kevis, lives over in France. John, by the way, got his BS degree under Dr. Rothenbuehler in OSU back in the day. Larry read an article in 2009. In 2010, I was up there working with Larry on queen rearing. We got some 48-hour queen cells, and long story short, I took 23 of them without any bees, wrapped in a damp towel, down to Columbus, put it in a cell finisher, and it worked. They finished them off. And then in 2012, I took and this is where you guys are can get involved. I took a bar of 45 48-hour queen cells up to Megan in Michigan, and you'll see a picture here in a minute. She put them in her finisher colony, and it worked very well. It's an easy way of getting good stock from point A to point B. Now you think about that, you can keep them away from bees for quite a few hours. But I elected for Megan to put it in a queenless nuke. And while I was traveling up to Michigan, the girls were feeding the queen larvae royal jelly. So I got busy and I didn't do anything for a few years, and I decided in 2018 to get back into the 40-hour queen cell projects again. And then when we were starting to collect a lot of feral stock, it just kind of everything came together. And then Megan, bless her heart, on the 2020 ABJ, and I think it was a September issue, she wrote about queen cells. And she put the picture of the queen cells that I took up to her. You'll see it here in a minute. And then this year, we're starting the Ohio Queen Bee Improvement Enterprise. Now, a little bit of basic queen biology. Queen lays, this is for a queen or a worker. Queen lays an egg. It's an egg for 3 days. It hatches. It's the only time bees hatch is from an egg to a larvae. Bees do not hatch and come out as a bee. They emerge. That kind of grinds my gourd when people say bees hatch. They don't. Egg hatches. So it's 3 days. It hatches into a larvae. It's a larvae from day 4 through day 8. At that time, the queen cell is capped and she emerges. It's at 16 days. In other words, 16 days after it started out as an egg, the queen emerges as an adult. It takes about 7 days for her hormones to kick in to get her to the urge to going out and mate with the drones in the drone congregation areas. And a few days after that, anywhere from 2 to 4, 5, 6, 7 days, it varies all over the map. Typically, though, it's about 4 days. The queen will start to lay eggs, fertilizing the eggs with the new sperm in her spermatheca. And then those following 20 days, she's averaging probably close to 1,000 eggs. It takes a while for her to ramp up, but once she gets started, the young queens will just lay their hearts out. So she lays about 15 to 20,000 eggs during that time. Then at day 49, from the time that she was an egg, the first worker brood starts to emerge. So just a little bit of background and the basic queen biology. Now, I wanted to show you guys, especially the newer guys, what a larvae looks like. What we do when we say grafting, what does that mean? Well, we're taking and we're transferring a larva. We try to get less than a 24-hour larvae from a worker cell into a queen cell cup, such as this down here. There's a larva laying down there in the base of that queen cell cup. And you can see there's larvae here, different ages of larvae. I just wanted to show you, you can see what larvae look like. So that's grafting larvae. Now, busy slide, but here's the thing. Up here, these two queens here are unmated queens, but look how large they are. That's what I always like to see wingtips at this third segment of her abdomen before she's mated and laying, because after she does that, her abdomen will extend out about this far. And that's a nice long queen. And if she's fed right, there's no reason why that queen can't lay eggs for at least 2 years. I have some queens that laid for 4 years before they were replaced. This is a self-starter finisher. And here's the 24-hour queen cell. I'm just trying to give you some insight as to what the 24 hours after it's grafted, that's where the royal jelly is. And then you see the 40-hour queen cells. That's what we're going to be transferring. Now there's Megan. We just pulled that frame of 45, 48-hour queen cells out of my traveling nuke full of young nurse bees. And she's laughing because this girl up here is oblivious as to what's going on. And I had to put some protein patty up there, and that worked. We just go up there, just go up and down the protein, take it down there, and start feeding royal jelly to these queen cell cups. They were well taken care of. And if you read her article, it worked out very well. That's what a traveling nuke looks like. We use them a lot in our work with inseminated queens at Purdue University. And for any time, if we have a queen rearing class, and yeah, Zell and I are going to have a queen rearing class this spring, and the guys whoever attends it will come with a nuke full of bees, and I'll show you what we expect in a box, something similar to that. Now for you new guys, that's what queen excluders look like, and I'll explain why I showed the queen excluders. Now here are 4 frames. The upper left is open-celled honey. Upper right is a lot of protein in the form of pollen and some honey. Lower left, lower right, between those 2 frames, there are about 10,000 workers, or about 3 pounds of bees are going to emerge sometime within the next 12 days. When I make a nuke for various reasons, I always like that. Now, all those frames should be loaded with bees so that you have a support live bees of at least 2.5 pounds. That makes a nice nuke that looks like this on the top. For a traveling nuke, or for you guys that are going to be coming to our queen rearing class, you make your nuke like that. And the reason I showed the queen excluders, you shake all the bees off of the frames you can look for the queen, no queen, shake all the bees off, back into the old colony, fill up the slots with drying comb, put the queen excluder on, put another super on top, put the empty comb with the brood and all that on top. You'll come back in about 4 or 6 hours and it'll be full of bees. No queen, and it'll look exactly like this. And that's what we want. Because if you bring one of those supers in one of your nukes up to Zales for our queen rearing class, minus the queen, full of bees, these are all young nurse bees, life will be good for you. So that's a traveling nuke. And that's our workhorse is at Purdue University. That was one of the, this is full of, you can see the queens there, how the girls are on those queens. Now here's a better picture. Those are all inseminated queens, and that nuke is full of young nurse bees. And we're feeding it protein patty and some sugar syrup. The top is off. I just wanted to show you how we transfer queens from point A to point B. Those are all inseminated queens. We're focused on developing a queen cell that's mature, that size, full of royal jelly, in order to make a queen that looks like Hope. It's the only time I named a queen, but at that time we needed some hope, so I said, yeah, we're going to call her Queen Hope. She's on our logo for the HHBBC organization. Those queen cells are underfed. Those queens are too small. They'll be, if they mate well at all, they'll be superseded in a few months. They will not last. Not enough. They weren't fed properly, so they don't have enough ovaries in their overalls to produce enough eggs. And the bees know that because their pheromone level is low. Okay, now we're going to take this slow and easy. I took a picture of a queen rearing calendar. It's a rotary wheel. If you go to the left to right, you graft a larvae on the 4th day. The egg has hatched, and there's the larvae. So you graft. 48 hours later, on the 6th day from the egg being laid, you have your 40-hour queen cell. And you can move those queen cells without any bees for 10 hours. Personally, though, I would rather you guys have nukes, young nurse bees, to move your queen cells. That's only my biased opinion. Now, so we're going to go to the next slide, and just showing Megan how I took those 40-hour queen cells up to Megan, and how things worked out for Megan. She because she got a lot of genetics. She lives around 4.5 hours from where I live right here in Tip City, Ohio. Now, let's pretend that we have a frame of 48-hour queen cells in a frame. So I chose this 8-frame super. Open honey here. There's open honey here. Emerging brood here. Emerging brood here. Pollen here for sure.
Yep.
Then young larvae. Young larvae.
You know what?
And this frame, this area here was a young larvae also.
Sure I've got your
And you take that frame of young larvae out, shake all the bees off an hour ahead of time. You put your 40-hour queen cells in there. And then you're going to wind up with a frame loaded with bees feeding those 40-hour queen cells. And this frame here is finished out. Those queen cells are completely sealed. And that's what you're going to have. So now we're getting back. Now we're going to go back. That's 40-hour queen cell system. Now here's another system that's, you can do this also. So at 5.5 days after grafting, this queen cell has just been capped at 5.5 days. I have a friend that's a commercial beekeeper over in Indiana, and they have been producing their own queens for years. And they use nothing but 5.5-day-old queen cells to put in their nukes. Because as soon as that cell is capped, It's still a larvae for 2 days. So you can move it without hurting anything for at least we're saying 8 to 12 hours. I said 8 hours there. So you can move 5.5 day cells. Now, what we do in our case, we take California mini cages, take a drill and ream out the one hole up to 9/16 and put those queen cells in. And then the bottom of that cage, we put some queen candy. And I have the recipe for the queen candy at the end of my presentation. So we put the queen candy in, about 3 drops of honey, put the queen cell in, you see that bank there, and put it into a strong colony that will keep those queen cells warm. We know when they're going to start to emerge. They'll emerge 16 days from the time the egg was laid, and we know the timing, and so we watch. When that day is, we know they're going to start to emerge. Every 8 hours, we go out there. And here's the reason why. They're going to come out. They're going to be hungry. They're going to get down and eat the honey. Some of the goofy queens will turn around and try to go back up and eat some royal jelly. Well, in the process, they get their wings jammed in that queen cell cup. So every 8 hours, we go out there and look for the ones that have the queen emerged, and we collapse the queen cell, rip the queen cell off, and I keep an X-Acto knife with me because occasionally I find a queen that's stuck. So I just cut the queen cell off from the queen, from the cell itself, the queen cage, or the queen cup from the queen cell, cut it off, and I save a queen. And you put the queens back in, and you leave them there for 2 or 3 days while you're figuring out where you're going to put them, or you're going to sell them to somebody. Because what we do, the next slide, you'll see it. We put that virgin queen on a nuke that's been queenless for at least 24 hours. I like to do mine 48 hours. If you have in that case, it was a 48-hour time from the time I made it up until I put that queen cage, that virgin queen. Within 20 seconds, those bees were all over that queen cage. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they love her. They just realize there's a queen there, and they know they're queenless, and they know they can smell the pheromone. So here is the next slide you're going to see. Here is the, for those of you who have smartphones, take a picture of this slide. Now, you're recording this presentation, right, Jeannie? Okay, good. Because you guys can use this this presentation over and over again. You'll go through all this technology. So what I do with my queen introduction, 48 hours after I make the cage, that nuke, I go back and check for queen cells, rogue queen cells that they may be building, even though they have a queen in a queen cage. I check for queen cells. Make sure I get every one of them. I put everything back in, and I take the paper off. Now this is 3 to 5 days after the queen's been in there. I go back the next time, check for queen cells, no queen cells. I take the tape or the paper off so they have access to the queen candy. Then 2 or 3 days later, I see if the queen's released. Now I layer on top, so I don't have to separate the frames to look for a queen in a queen cage. The queen cage is laying on top. I just roll the queen cage over, and if she's out, I just take the queen cage out, and don't bother the nuke. Let things alone. For if it's a virgin queen, you wait for at least 10 days after the queen's been released. Allow her to go out and mate, come back, and start laying eggs. In a perfect world, after 10 days, you can sneak back and pull the side frame out, move the frames over in the middle, and see if you have eggs. You have eggs, you're successful, put everything in back. Now you have a mated queen and a nuke. So that's a virgin, and people say that's difficult to do, introduce virgin queens. I've done it too many times. It is not hard to do at all. Now, while you're looking, you're going to be looking for emergency queen cells, something like this. If the goofy queens decide that they want to make some of their own queens, you destroy them all. And when you destroy them all, it means you destroy and you go in and kill the larvae, because if you don't, they'll rebuild the queen cell again. So you just kill the larvae. Now, time is marching on. So after a while, the larvae are getting too old. They can't make any queens from the older larvae, and they know it. At some point in time, after about 6 to 7 days, they realize they're stuck with that queen they have there. And the acceptance rate in this process is about 95 to 98% successful. The only time we fail is when the queen gets lost and doesn't get back, physically doesn't get back. She gets lost for some reason. So now we're going to do this again. We've done the 48-hour queen cell. We've done the 5.5 day with the capped queen and then the virgins. Now we're going to go to the mature queen cell. After 5.5 days, the next 3 days, it's extremely important you don't touch those queen cells, because that's when their legs and wings are developing. They grow very quickly. And if you touch them, you're liable to hurt those wings and legs, and then you've got a bad queen. So after day 13 from the egg being laid, day 13, you can move mature queen cells. And I took the pictures from various articles. You can see you can put foam, drill holes in the foam and put the queen cell there. A battery box, you do it this way. My favorite is I have a Rubbermaid carrier for pop. Put the foam down there. You get a 1 pound jar full of hot water from the tap. Put it underneath. Put a washcloth on top. Put the foam on top. Put the queen cells in there, and you can move queen cells for several hours in a vertical position with no problem. I've done it lots of times. Megan and me, I use queen cell protectors too, like this. And Megan does, she had different pictures on her article. A foam like that. I like this one. This is a hair curler queen cage, and she drilled the hole out on the one end and put the queen cell in there, because once in a while when we're carrying them, we have queens that had emerged early and they're walking on our hands. So it's kind of nice to do it that way. Or you can buy these egg incubators, and we use those to carry them too. We've done all of this. Works very well. Once you do it a couple of times, you'll be an expert. I'm not kidding you. Now you take those queen cells with the cell protectors and put it between two frames. And this happens to be a queen castle. 3 frames per nuke. Put it down there, and you go back in about 3 days or so, and the queen should be emerged, and you take the protector off, and you let them alone, and you wait for about 10 days or so, whatever, and look for a laying queen. I'm just showing you again how to make a mating nuke. Same type as you would a traveling nuke. You want to get some emerging bees, brood, open cells as far as the carbs are concerned, and honey, and then protein. Lots of bees. Now you have a mating nuke. Easy to do. That is not rocket science. The big thing is you got to use, for you well, I like to do the queen excluders because I can do it real fast, and I can make a lot of nukes without looking for the goofy queens. Why spend time looking for a goofy queen when you shake all the bees off, put the new comb in, put the queen excluder on top, new super, put those in there, go back in a couple of days, they're loaded with bees, ready to go. Just showing another frame of protein. Protein is a key on all this. Now, lately, we have found there's an organization in California that's called Acorn, and they produce, this is black plastic, triple waxed foundation. I buy these frames are coming from my Amish guy up in Ashland County. Some of you guys know where that's at. Very good lumber, very good price. I snap those in, I'm ready to go. It's less money than using foundation, wiring, the grommets, all that. It's less money and less time. And the bees love this better than the wax foundation we discovered last summer. A lot of us tried it. And see, you have this, within a day or two, you're going to have that. And they draw it out at one time, all together. That is beautiful. So this is the mated queen. We're doing, you have a mated queen and you're introducing it into a nuke to start with. You do the same process that we did on the virgin queen. No difference. Same introduction process. I do this process the same way for introducing inseminated queens. My inseminated queens, though, are in there for 8 to 10 days longer. That's all. Because they're different animals than naturally mated queens. Same thing with emergency queen cells. No different. So this is the flow chart of the breeder queen. You graft. Now, in some cases, some people graft in point A, and they put the larvae on a bar, wrap it in a towel, and you can travel with eggs or day-old larvae in queen cell cups for at least 2 hours before you put them in your cell starter. You can also, just FYI, the Frederick brothers, or Reuter brothers, over in Germany back in the day, figured out you could take day-and-a-half-old eggs out of the colony, cut the comb out of the frame, wrap it in newspaper, and mail it and put it in the mail, and 24 hours later put it back into a colony, and the eggs are not damaged. So there's a lot of different things you can do with 40-hour queen cells and transferring genetics from point A to point B. I'm just showing you some of the queens that we see in feral stock. They're all feral stock. We graft from a coal black queen. Sometimes we get a queen looking like that. Sometimes we get tiger tails like that. It's all mixed up because you have all this diversity in the genetics, which we love. Okay, now we've talked about the queen side. The drone side is the other 50%. And you have got to pay attention to the drone side. Every time I cross paths with Sue Kobe, she used to be at OSU, first thing she yells at me, "Hey, Dwight, what's important in life?" I said, "A good bull in the barnyard." She says, "You're right." And we laugh because we talk about drone issues. Because there's major drone issues, especially with the sperm quality. The guy there is Jay Evans, Dr. Jay Evans. He works at the Bellsville Bee Lab in Maryland. Good guy. He writes in Bee Culture magazine. He has a new book out. Great book because he presents essays every month. Has links to all the research that he's talking about from around the world. He's a great guy. He's a down-to-earth guy. You have to produce drones. That's drone brood from foundation. And there's probably around 2,200 drones there in that one frame alone. We've got to produce a lot of drones. The research suggests on a drone congregation area, there should be about 5,000 drones to mate with in a week's time in order to mate with different queens. Now, Sue Kobe gave me this photo. It was a frame off of the video. A queen has mounted a queen. And this is the comment. The queen's up here. And all these drones are trying to outfly each other to go up there and mate with that queen. And the thing down here that Mark Winston was trying to show, that after he deposits his semen in her, he flips over and his penis is ripped off. That's preventing inbreeding. That's nature's way making sure that drone cannot mate with another queen, because life would be difficult if we didn't have that happen. It's feed, feed, feed. We're feeding a lot of protein flour nowadays, and next week, a week after we get through this period of cold weather, it starts warming up on Sunday. And then the following week, the bees are going to be flying. and they're going to be looking for feeders. I make those out of PVC pipe. I've got quite a few of them out in different areas, feeding feral bees plus my own bees. Double screen. Now, let's say you were forced to get packages of bees. I understand. So now what we're going to do is say you got the package of bees, and the queen's laying well, and she's got brood in quite a few frames, and maybe it's in 2 supers. So we're going to work here. We're going to put a double screen on top of the hive and put a nuke above the double screen and let it grow for a few weeks until it's as strong as you want it to be. It's got to be at least 5 frames of bees, though, a minimum. So what you're going to do, you're going to take the top nuke off, take the double screen off. You're going to put queen excluders between the supers. Put them back together, put everything back. 4 days later, you're going to go back and you're going to find where the queen's at, because you're going to look for eggs. Wherever the super is that has the eggs, the queen's there. You don't have to look for the queen. You know the queen's in that super. You set that super aside. You put a newspaper on the brood nest area, spray it, and cut a couple of slits in it. Put your nuke with the new queen on top of it, on top of the newspaper. You put the double screen on top of that and put the old queen on top. So what you've done is flip the queens. And you leave the old queen lay until you know that the new queen is laying and she's been accepted, and it's almost 100%. Now, what you can do with that old queen, if she's still laying eggs, you can let both those queens, it's a 2-queen system to a point, or you can put it someplace else, or you can let her lay for a while and take some brood off of there and make some more nukes. So a lot of different ways what you can do with, but this is flipping, taking a queen that you don't really want and making good genetics. In our case, the locally adapted stock here we have in Ohio. It works fine. I know a guy that does it. Has been doing it for years and years and years with hundreds of colonies of bees. Works great. And there's a nuke above a double screen right there, right there. I've overwintered nukes on top of strong colonies. Overwintered. Works great. Here's another picture. I was getting them ready to pull the tape off for the vent hole. I had 9 of them there. All 9 nukes came through the winter very well. Speaking of nukes, double nuke systems, that's the Mike Palmer. Mike spoke last night up at Medina. I missed him because I lost my power. I've known Mike for several years. Those double nuke systems like that, look at that. Started 4 of those nukes April 1st with a 5-frame nuke. And I took that picture on May 21st. You had brood all the way up here. This is honey up here. This 5-frame here probably had 2 frames of honey here and 3 frames of brood here. So all that brood, look at all the brood you have there. You could make lots of nukes from those guys. And you start them over again. I've made nukes from nukes from nukes. You can go nuke crazy. Easy to do once you've done it one time. Now there's a queen candy recipe. This recipe was developed by Dr. Laidlaw. He gave it to Larry Connor and to Joe Lakshaw. And they gave it to me. And if I use a microwave with a infrared thermometer, because I want to make sure that you can tear that dough at 94, 95 degrees. So it's not smeary in there, because you don't want a queen getting her queens in that queen candy and dying. That is a proven process right there. And then last but not least, there is a USDA thing that you can, there's the information right there. And today I tested it out. I bought another 800 of those over the internet for free. They're free because you can hand them out to people so that they understand what type of flower, where to go and see what type of flowers they need to plant for the monarchs or for pollinators or for honeybees. It's a good handout. If you're doing a presentation to a garden club or things like that, they enjoy it, something like that. Recommended reading. A lot of good books there. The Lives of Bees is Tom's last book. Great book. Jay's Bee Optimism is a great book also. The Art of the Bee is Rob Page's last book. It just published about 4 or 5 months ago. It's a great book. Then, of course, the two magazines, American Bee Journal and the Bee Culture Magazine. And if you're doing a lot of mating of honeybee, of queens, the mating biology of honeybees, Dr. Jamie Ellis in Florida and Larry Connor went together and did the editing, and it was in German from Europe, and they worked with the Chronikers to publish that book. It's a good book on mating biology of honeybees. It defines everything about what you need to understand about mating biology. And with that said, we're going through a paradigm shift. We've got to change our way of believing something, and something is bringing in packages. And I know I shouldn't say that, but I will. We have to have locally adapted stock. And we have to start what Zell is going to be doing. We need about 10 Zell Maxwells using locally adapted stock with 40-hour queen cells, unmated queens, mated queens, whatever, to get it out to the areas around Ohio to get this new genetics that we need. And we have to just flip the gene pools. With that said, yeah, I'm not going to go any farther than that.
Okay, and if people, are you ready for questions, Dwight?
Yep.
Well, people, you'll have to unmute yourselves because I muted everybody so we could hear Dwight. If you have questions, you can either speak up and unmute yourself or write them in the chat and we can look at them there.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of myself. That was exactly an hour.
You did good job. Good job.
I did a lot of talking, and I'm sure I hope I covered everything, especially for the more experienced beekeepers. Guys, you new beekeepers, there's a lot of things I said that you're saying, what in the world is he talking about?
Yeah.
2 years from now, when you go back and look at 2 years from now, this will be outdated information, but this still will be good to understand.
Yeah.
I have a question. So,
okay, we're not hearing you, Derry. We heard 3 words and you cut out.
hear me now?
There we go.
Okay. I said that I started last spring in beekeeping, and I got a package. And anyway, like the queen ended up dying and they requeened. Anyway, you talked about these feral bees. How do I get a hold of something like that? Like, where do you suggest they go?
Okay. Glad you, boy, Derek,
Uh-oh.
you can imagine. That's a perfect question.
You better make it short, Dwight.
Where's Zell at? Zell, hey, Zell, speak out.
Yeah, we're, trying as hard as we can to raise these feral queens and make them available. Because I'm a member of the Fairfield County Club, I've been doing a queen class where we'll actually teach you how to do that with this feral stock. And so you can actually graft your own queens. We would recommend, somebody that's had a little bit of experience, but Dwight and I have talked. I'm even open to new beginners if you're really interested in doing that, because it's not that difficult. The queen class this year we're doing, the way I do it is it's either an all-day Friday and half a day on Saturday, or it's all day on Saturday, half a day on Sunday. So I basically run 2 classes with just a little overlap, and they're coming up. The end. If it's okay, I'll do a little advertisement here. I guess I'm already doing it, but it's starts. The first class would be Friday, May 21st, and then Saturday afternoon on the 22nd, and the second class would be starting on Saturday, May 22nd, run all day, and then come back on Sunday afternoon on the 23rd. That's the queen rearing class that we're doing, and we're grafting only feral stock. We have. And Dwight, and I talk. I think we have stock from 5 good sources in Ohio, and so we'll have quite a bit of diversity. But these are bees that we've been, tracking, doing the alcohol washes, low mite counts, overwintered stock, that kind of stuff. All the good stuff that you're looking for. And I don't know if it was really apparent, but the size of these queens is just awesome. I mean, they really, if they're well fed and so on. And I wanted to say something, Dwight, on their one slide, where you were using the blue JZBZ cell cups and they were only half full, and you said these wouldn't develop into good queens. That's the nice thing about those cell cups is you can actually, they're transparent enough, you can see how much royal jelly is really being fed to the queens. And so, we know before we have a queen emerge whether we're going to have a good one or not because they've been well fed. But anyway.
And Derry, for new people, what the feral bees are bees caught by swarm trapping, but you want to set swarm traps out in places where you're not around a lot of beekeepers. You want to be out in the middle of the woods somewhere, or and that's what. So when they do the queen class, they use the swarms, the feral swarms that they've caught to make the new queens.
Now, Derry, I see how young you are. You have something going on for you that a lot of people give anything. You're young, your hand-eye coordination, and you're not wearing glasses, so you have good eyesight. If you'd come to a queen rearing class, you would be a major asset because we could teach you how to graft, and you would graft better than probably any of us older geezers because of our, you've got the skill set that we don't have. And females do much better with small processes in industry. They use women a lot to do things that men can't do. And most of the commercial queen producers have girls that are about 18 to 25 to 28 years old do the grafting for them. So even though you don't have a lot of experience, we would enjoy your company down there for graft. And the thing of it is, if you could partner up with somebody who's an experienced beekeeper that may not be able to graft very well, you could do the grafting for them. I have a lot of that happening. So just because you don't have a lot of experience, don't let that, don't get in the way of that.
Jeannie, I'll send you copies of the brochure I made for the queen class if you want to send it out and distribute it. I mean, we've done that in the past, and I think that's probably the best way to do that. Another little sidebar is we will on, I think it's April the 10th, I'm going to do my first go round of just kind of a beginning class for people. It's not, don't want to be in competition with, the Fairfield Club or anything like that, but there's some things that Dwight and I have come up with that we think that people that really want to get into beekeeping should be interested in and learn from. And I haven't even advertised this yet, and my class is half full. So it's still going to be a big hit, I think. But anyway, I'll send you that brochure as well.
Okay.
And the thing that is, if you can bring a nuke like I showed there with you to the queen rearing class, you would probably be able to take some queen cells home with you.
Okay, some people up in Richland County are asking about information about the queen class. I'll send it your way, but you'd I guess have to come down.
Yeah, we also, Jeannie, I have people from Springfield that want to come over. I've got some people from other areas of the state that have already contacted me. So I have a list of hotels that I'm providing for people to stay overnight and so on. So, you know, the folks in Richland County can easily do that.
Okay.
Hey, this is Bryce. I have a question. So you're talking about the 24 or the 48-hour queens, and they're basically started in a queenless colony, finished in a queenless colony, and then transported potentially in a queenless colony. How does that compare to a 24-hour queenless starter finisher process? And why has that always been practiced? That starter finisher with high acceptability, and now we're going backward into almost a completely queenless process.
There are a lot of different ways of producing queens. I've done it all the ways you suggested. We, if the large queen producers, a lot of times they'll make cell starters / finishers all in one. Some people and do the Larry, it was the Steve, I forget his last name, Sue Kobe and Larry Connor like to use a queenless cell starter for 24 hours and then put the cells into another to finish them cell starter and finisher. There's a lot of different processes. I've done them all and they all work. The big thing is it's protein and carbs. You can't slack off on anything.
But
And you
Dwight, go
yeah.
ahead. Isn't the point of the 48-hour queen cell too, though, that it can be transported so that you can go to Dwight or to Zale's place,
Yep.
use the feral stock there, and put it in a starter or what's the first and get it going, and then pull it out in 2 days and take it home.
Yep.
Or take it to Cleveland, or take it to Dayton, or whatever.
You do it without bees and a damp towel, or put it in a queenless nuke, and take it for a good 12, 14 hours with no problem.
So it's basically a way to share the genetics by giving them, trading them or whatever from one region to another.
If you read Megan's article, she said that because once she got the 24-hour queen cell or 48-hour queen cells that I took up there, after she finished off, she handed them out to a lot of people up there in Michigan. Genetics from Larry's place. That was I'm sorry, those were down here in Logan County that I took up there. So different genetics. The thing is, we need to move genetics from point A to point B. We've got to make sure that we don't, there's some research done, that's done over in Europe. They had a good thing going. The problem is there was too much isolation and they didn't have new stock naturally moving into that area. And they got into an inbreeding problem, just like the commercial bees are now. So you've got to be constantly, every once in a while, bring in new genetics. That's what Sue Kobe and I we're talking about. Just like any farmer, he's always bringing in new genetics, whether he's a dairyman or beef cattle or goats or whatever. Same thing.
All right, we're getting feedback from somebody. Any other questions?
Actually, yeah, I have one more question. You can hear me. So.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've watched some of Mike Palmer's videos on YouTube. And I see that I don't know a lot about nukes, but I only have one hive so far, and I'm hoping that it survives the winter time and that it's overwintered correctly. And I'd like to start making nukes. Do you guys do single nuke systems or double?
Hey, Gary, you are very fortunate. In April, I'm going to be doing a nuke presentation to the Fairfield Beekeepers Club. So,
and Gary, you can add as many boxes on a nuke as you want. We have one gal, Conrad's daughter, What is her name?
Tess.
Tess Conrad
Yes.
actually overwintered and harvested honey from nukes.
What?
So, you know,
Well,
you can,
let's not use the wrong word. So a nuke is just the small version of a colony.
right.
Once you get to that size that she was using 5-frame deep boxes to make a colony.
That's
She
a
was doing
nuke.
it. It's not a nuke. A nuke is defined as the small colony. She was doing it for weight.
If I get any late swarms, I overwinter them in a typically a triple 5-frame configuration. And one year I did something stupid, and I left them in 5-frame configurations, and I produced 100 pounds of honey.
Hang on, Dwight. I'm gonna mute everybody again and not you turn yourself back on. We got somebody we can't hear you. Okay, now unmute yourself, Dwight. And then as people want to talk, they can unmute.
So
Okay.
there's, you know, I have my hardware that I have personally in my different places in Wright-Patterson and up north. I have 5-frame configuration, I have 8-frame configuration, and I have 10 frames configurations. I love 8-frame and 5-frame because they make more bees and more honey. That research was done many, many years ago by Walter Kelly down in Kentucky when he was still alive back in the 50s and 60s. And they produce a lot more honey, and because of heat, it's a heat thing. So when I get a swarm, it's really a nuke, and I just keep on adding 5-frame supers on it until I get about 20 frames. Then I put it into an 8-frame system. That's that one yard here. It's up in Union County. That's what those are. Those are the results of swarms. And they were in 5-frame configurations until we got them up into strong enough. This guy right here.
Mm-hmm.
Right there. Those are, I think those are all 8-frame configurations. Up in that area, we have another yard that have some 5-frame. They're 3 high. I have overwintered in 5-frame configurations up to 6 high, coming through the winter very well.
But excuse me, but aren't you in the Cincinnati area, Dayton area?
I'm in the Dayton area, yes. I'm north of Dayton. I'm north of Dayton.
Your winter's a little milder than
Well,
here in Mansfield.
Okay.
I don't know if can anybody tell me if that would work in Mansfield, because I think we're the coldest, one of the coldest spots in the state, Belleville here.
They'll work in Mansfield. I have bees fairly close to Mansfield in the same latitude, and they're going through the winter right now, 4 high, very well.
You know, Darla, they actually say that 5-frame hives are more like a bee tree in their size interior.
Oh, okay.
And actually what we put out for swarm traps is a double deep nuke box. And that's the size. If you read Tom Seeley's book, Honeybee Democracy, that's the size they like.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I just didn't know.
Yep. Good question.
I'll do a little bit of advertising here. I have 2 other presentations. One is called Working with Feral Honeybees. And the other one is Swarm Trapping. They're both hour-long presentations because I go into the science, especially in the one on swarm trapping, because we've got it down. We have made a lot of errors since 2012. We're to the point now that, and I'm not bragging, we're sending out we know where the feral bees are at now. We set the traps out. The odds are that about 80% we're going to get feral bees. That's why this year we caught 200 swarms, because we know where the gene pools are that are feral. We know where the bee trees are. And if you look here, right here, I have a lot of these protein feeders out, these PVC protein feeders out on limbs right now. And next weekend, when it's going to be 45 degrees, needless to say, there's a barrel over here with feeders also. And when it gets to be 45 degrees, I'm going to be out and making sure my feeders have good flour in them and watching for feral bees in areas that we don't know what we don't know. We think they do have, but the key is at the end of the day, when it's warm and you have bees visiting those feeders, we know there's feral bee trees someplace within about a quarter or half a mile away. We've learned that through a lot of work. So this process works very well. This area here has a lot of potential where these hives here are in Union County. As an example, I have bees up, a lot of bees, most of my bee yards are up in Logan County. One of them is at the highest point in Ohio at 1,500 feet, 1,535 feet. They're windy, and it's not quite latitude-wise, it's not quite as far north, but altitude-wise, I'm up high. And that area up there got a lot, high, lots of moisture. And they have a lot more snow up there right now than I have down here in Tip City. I got 8 inches this last storm. They got around 12, 14 inches up in Logan County, up near Bell Fountain area.
Yeah. Okay, anybody else? Questions?
What we're seeing, my network and I, there's quite a few of us have been swarm trapping for a long time, made all mistakes. We're to the point now, we're having fun with bees. And that's one of the things, when I took some feral bees down to Zale, I didn't say anything to him. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, he called me, he said, "Hey, Dwight, these bees are like the bees that I had back in the 60s. I said, "Thank you." Because there's a major difference between the feral bees and non-adapted stock. And I'm not against any, I'm trying to be very neutral in all this. The only thing I'm trying to do is if you have non-adapted stock, you do the flip like I showed you, you're going to see within about 8 weeks, you're going to see a difference in your bees. The feral bees fly earlier in the morning, later at night, and if it's drizzling out, they'll fly in the drizzle. And you're saying, "Well, that's crazy." It happens, and they're very, I'll say, very, very ambitious. They just have a different personality than what I was used to back in the day when I was using packaged bees there. When I got back into beekeeping in 2008, I'd been away from it for 20 years because of my work in the automotive industry. And I got back into it. I walked into a wall of varroa mites and packaged bees. And I'm saying to myself, what in the world's happened? But then we started swarm trapping. And here we are. We're back to, I was born and raised on a dairy farm in Pennsylvania, out in God's country. I mean, we had bears, bobcats, everything else back there. We had a woodlot, 2 bee trees. Every farm had a woodlot in Western Pennsylvania with feral bees in it.
Yeah. Yep.
So when our queens were being replaced, they were mating with feral bees. We didn't know what was going on until after we lost all the feral bees, because when they were all destroyed, and by 1990, 95, they were all gone because they didn't have any resistance to mites. Now the bees, through natural selection, there's about 6,000, 7,000 feral bees, we're guessing, and it's building every year. And they're getting back to where, in about 10 years from now, we're going to have a lot of feral bees. In fact, we're getting a little concerned about some areas that the swarms may be getting themselves into trouble because they're trying to find a new home. Well, they can't find a suitable cavity, so they wind up in somebody's house. And that's not a good thing.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. All right. Anybody else? questions? Don't all talk at once.
I don't have a
Like
question, I have a comment.
Sure.
I just want to say thank you. I have really appreciated this evening.
Good. Good. Well, we're glad everybody came. I know we got people from what, Richland? Are there people from other clubs here as well besides Fairfield?
If there are any other questions, if Zell and Dwight will be very happy to answer questions.
Mhm.
I didn't put Zell's information on this presentation. If the guys, if you want Zell's information, get a hold of Jeannie.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, I can pass on emails and stuff.
we need, if you guys up in Richland County want my emails so that we can dialogue back and forth, I have no problem with that. With texting and emails.
Well, and I just told him on chat, I'll send as soon as I get stuff from Zale, I can send it to you guys up there too. So we got to cooperate and work together here with all this shutdown stuff, and that's the only way we can keep things going. And some clubs have more capability to do certain things, and we just need to help each other out here.
This is Tuesday night. Yeah, Thursday night, I'm doing a Zoom meeting for East Coba.
Mm-hmm.
I did one for Coba, so now in the West Coba, all my guys are in this swarm trapping thing.
Mm-hmm.
So West Coba, East Coba, Coba, Fairfield, and Mommy Bee Club. Then next week, I'm doing a Zoom for the Southwestern Ohio Beekeepers Association down north of Cincinnati. So what we're doing, in effect, is trying to find clubs with champions that have the time and the ability and the interest to start working with Zell and I on all this stuff to get the stock out. Because once you get it out, you're going to see a difference.
Yep. All righty. Well, if there aren't more questions,
Jeannie?
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Hey, Dwight. My name is Matt. I took your B class at Zales last year. I got into some uncharted territory. I have about 20 plus hives, and I had a dozen queen cells, and I couldn't figure out a good way to get all those queen cells into hives that were queenless. Is this something where you just tear down production hives and
Yes.
turn them into nukes and
Correct.
cross out that old queen? And okay.
Yes. Larry, one of the things I've known Larry. See, Larry Connor back in the day was an extension at OSU back in the 70s when I was beekeeping. So Larry and I go back a long way. When I got back into beekeeping, we found each other again. And Larry always tells me, a person can make more money raising bees, producing bees and queens than they can honey. Now, by default, I produce a lot of honey. I don't, because of my age. It's hot, sticky, and a lot of hard work. And I have a friend that does all my extracting for me. So honey is a byproduct for me. The thing we're trying to do is, to answer your question, just tear down. You have to decide if you're going to produce honey or you're going to produce bees. Now, some people say you have 20 colonies. 10 colonies are for honey production. The other 10 colonies are for nuke production or whatever. And in my case, if I want to make a lot of brood real quick, I have a lot of double nuke systems, like the Mike Palmer double nuke systems. It's a quick way of producing a lot of brood. It's why? Because they're side by side. The heat is coming up from the bottom. It's also coming from the side. And those queens just lay their hearts out. And you have to work them every 7 days or they're going to swarm on you. And I had some of those hives, or those double nuke systems, to be above my head. And they were strapped together because we were trying to make as much brood as possible to make mating nukes. It takes out, see, mating queens is tough because you need so many frames of resource and bees to make a small mating nuke. You know, because typically I like to use nothing but deep frames to keep everything the same. I have a lot of 5-frame nuke boxes or solid bottom boards or even screen bottom boards. You start out with 1 frame of brood and 1 frame of nutrition and maybe an empty comb. Or if you have lots of resources, 2 frames. And you get that queen in there and get her to lay and keep her in there and put more supers on. Pretty soon you have, and she's going to lay new queens love to lay eggs. And once you get them started and take off within 6-8 weeks, you're going to have lots of brood. So you can make more nukes until you run out of time in fall when there's no longer any drone supply. Now, some places in Ohio have a two-time drone supply. One is in swarm season in April, May timeframe, early June. There are areas in Ohio that also have one that develops in August, September. There's a lot of drones in certain areas of Ohio. So and I think you'd have to find out whether your nutrition supply is such as to, because some of our stock wants to swarm in fall. We've got to be careful. We do have to do swarm management in the fall to keep them from swarming.
Yeah.
But they're producing a lot of drones.
Yep. All righty. Well, folks, Dwight, thank you very much for being with us tonight and sharing all what you're doing. And I know they're keeping you busy.
Has anybody said anything from East Coba? Has East Coba reached out to anybody? Because I'm doing East Coba Thursday night.
I don't know that I've gotten anything. They usually send something to me, but I don't know whether I've gotten anything or not.
I just got the link from the guy this afternoon.
Right. Yep. All righty, folks. Well, appreciate everybody coming tonight. We had a good group, and pass it on, and Dwight will be around, and I will definitely get the queen rearing stuff to Richland when they get that to me. So appreciate everybody coming tonight, and if you're newish and you're totally confused, that's okay. Just keep coming back. So I think we're about done for the night, and I think we had Will asked how many people. I think we had up to 36 at one point.
That's good.
So yeah, that's, usually we run about 20 to 25. And I think we had more visitors than we had club members. So
that's okay too, because
that's
because I know where I know people up in the Richland area. So
yeah.
There's a lot of experienced beekeepers up in the Richland that area.
Yeah. Okay. Derry, we'll see you in a couple weeks, and
yeah, for
see if
sure.
we can get
And
going. And
I don't want to keep you, but I just wanted to throw something out there. I said that I went through a re-cleaning process this summer. And I actually have in my bee yard, there's a natural bee tree there.
Oh, very cool.
Fantastic.
That's cool.
A gift. You have a gift.
Does that mean that maybe I have like feral genetics in my...
You probably do.
Are there any keepers in your area?
In my area?
Where do you live?
I live in Lancaster. But
there's 160 beekeepers in her area.
Yeah, but my hive is actually in Hawking County.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I'm like in the woods and
Hey, rule number 1: you don't tell anybody your location, because you put up a swarm trap there.
Yeah, it's like mushroom hunting.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what they do in the queen rearing class, and what you could do is, if you get one of those what's the microscope, Dwight?
The DM4, DM5 microscope.
DM4, DM5, you can find them on Amazon for like what, $50?
Yeah, less than that. It depends. the day of the week.
what they've done is shown us you can look at the mites under those microscopes and see if they have chewed the legs off of the mites. And if you count how many are chewed versus how many you found, then you know the percentage of how much they're chewing mites. And that's what we're trying to get into the genetics, is these bees that chew mites and kill them, so we don't have to put poison on them all the time.
Hey, Gary, Jeannie is going to send you my email address. Once I get your email address, I will send you a picture of the swarm trap that we're using.
Yeah.
And it's a standard 5-frame nuke system with a modified bottom that I get from my buddy up in Richland County,
Yeah.
Dennis Koblenz. And Jim has his address too.
Yep. Well, and we have that, our Amish builder, Elmer, he made swarm traps,
Oh, yeah.
the double
Yeah.
deep
Yeah, because they're
box
brothers-in-laws.
for us. Yeah.
He
And he made them for us last year, and we do bulk buys, 2 or 3 times a year of different things. So we'll probably do that again in the spring.
How much land do you have down there in your secret fishing hole? How much land? Can you put up a couple of swarm traps within about 500 feet of each other?
Yeah, we have about 54 acres. So,
Oh my goodness.
yeah.
Boy,
Can put some
you
up.
have a gift.
Yep.
I will work with you. I will
And
give
put
you all
put protein feed out.
feeders out right now. And
Yep.
I'll send you a picture of a protein feeder.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Yep.
send me I just need your email address, and I'll send them to you tonight or tomorrow. So you have them, and I'll work with you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
No
it.
problem.
Anybody else? We could go on all night. All righty, folks.
Well, take care, everybody.
Okay.
Be careful.
Um,
It's gonna snow again Thursday.
Arjun, can you put your email in the chat so that I can send it to you?
Thanks, Dwight.
Yep.
Sure.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Okay. And I have Dari's, so I can send that to Dwight. So.
Don't hesitate to send me something on email.
Yep.
I'll respond to you. I'm busy. I've got a lot of things going on, but especially you younger kids.
Yeah.
Hey, you're our future leaders.
Absolutely.
I'm 80 years old, and I come from a long-lived family, but I can only live so long. So anyway, I want to help you guys.
Okay. All right. I got a
Okay,
bunch of
with that
emails
said-
here. I'm gonna copy them all and stick them in my thing here. Oops. Hang on a minute. Okay, I got everybody's that's in there, and I will send information to you guys when I get it, and to Dwight.
Good.
And let me just cut and paste them so I don't lose them. Okay.
I
Any-
appreciate your interest, guys.
Yeah.
Really do.
Anything else, guys, for the evening?
Okay. Take care, everybody.
All right, guys. Good night. I'm getting hungry. I'm gonna go eat my dinner. Good to see everybody.
You too. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.